today. I'm Louise McCormick, president of the Plymouth Historical Society. It was 5 years ago, more than 5 years ago, that we started this initiative, and we call it Memories of Plymouth. It's our way of saying thank you to folks that are willing to come in and share their stories, their memories, their times in Plymouth and all of the surrounding towns that feed into it. When we think about what a community is, I think it's important for us to remember where we grew up, where we worked, who we socialized with, how we were educated, and more. Some of you have been townies in the past, meaning for me, you were born and lived here all your life. Others came here and spent a mere maybe 50 or 60 years here. So today we have another guest, and I'd like to thank Eunice for joining us. This is Eunice Henderson Wentzell. Thank you very much for coming in today.
I'm happy to be here.
We have a series of questions that we would like to ask you, and you can talk for as long as you want. No, you cannot, because I'll shut you off. I promise you. I promise you. But there are some people in the area that maybe one person who does not know you. Mm-hmm. For that one person, we're going to ask some questions about your background, where you grew up, if that's okay with you. And then we'll start breaking out and asking questions about the area in which we've been for the last several years. So again, thank you very much for joining us. Would you please state your full name for the audience?
My name is Eunice Ann Henderson Wentzell.
All right, and I'll have another question for you in a bit about your husband and his name and how the two are similar for the audience. All right. Where were you born?
I was born in Milford, Mass.
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing when you were born?
I was born in 1927.
1927. When's your birthday?
It's on February 12th.
Oh,
same as yours.
Oh, I wasn't going to say that for the audience, but I will now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Parents, mother, and father's name?
My father's name was Harold Linwood Henderson. And my mother's name was Lita Eunice Ward, W-A-R-D, Henderson.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Do you have brothers and sisters?
No.
You're a sibling,
Yeah.
all by yourself?
All by myself.
Yeah. So you have no siblings.
Yes.
When did you move to Plymouth?
We moved here in 1940.
All right.
Yeah.
What was the times like then?
How do you mean?
Well, do you have memories for those early days? You would have been, I'm doing my
starting
math now.
high school.
Starting high school. So do you have any memories that stick out real quick about what the town was like when you moved here?
Well, there was no Interstate 93, I know that.
Yeah.
And it took us 4.5 hours to go back to Milford, Mass. All the back roads.
Wow.
Down Bristol, down by Newfound and so forth. But the town was small then. There was no Tenny Mountain Highway, of course. Everything was right in town.
Mm-hmm. That's neat. 4.5 hours. Today would probably take you how long to get to Milford?
Oh, a couple of hours.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. And why did your family move to the area?
Well, my father worked for Draper Corporation in Hopedale in the business department. And Draper had this part in Beebe River.
Mm-hmm.
And the office manager was retiring. So my father was offered the job. And he thought about it, my folks talked about it, and they decided, no, they couldn't make that move. They knew no one up here. And they had 3 elderly parents in Milford. They would be leaving, so they decided no. But then one of the higher-ups in Draper Corporation, who went to our church in Milford, talked to my father, and he said, Harold, if you don't take this job, they might never offer you another raise or another place. So they talked about it again and decided they better do it. So they did, and we moved up here in the summer of 1940. That's when I was starting high school, knowing not one person, not one student when I started.
Major change for you.
Yes.
Major
it was
change
hard.
for you.
Yeah.
Wow. So you did not go to school in Beebe River, the complex there, during your elementary years,
No.
obviously, and your middle school years.
Right.
Wow, wow. You were sharing with me one time we had chatted. Who are some of the teachers that you can remember from the Beebe River area?
Let's see. Ruth Dolby Young taught the first 4 grades. And Joyce Breck Young. Those are their married names, and I don't know if they were ever related. Wow. She taught 5 through 8. And they lived at the boarding house in Beebe River, which was run. They had rooms, and they served 3 meals a day there, 7 days a week.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was how the school was then.
That's neat. That's neat. Thank you. And you were married to Mr. Wentzell,
Yeah.
Ed Wentzell. His full name?
Edward Allen Wentzell.
Now let's share with the audience the connection between the initials of your name and your husband's
We
name.
both had the same 3 initials, EAW. Yep. Don't imagine that happens too often.
No, I think that's very rare. Absolutely. And so he ended up working at Beebe River for several years?
Several years. And then when the children were small and I was still at home, he took a job evenings also at the Jack-o'-lantern and started their first bar there. So he worked there for quite a while and then eventually moved to Toby's in Plymouth and ran their bar, managed their bar. And then after he'd been there a while and learned the ropes of the restaurant, he managed the restaurant too for a while, several years.
A busy person, a busy person.
Very. That was evenings.
Most of us remember Mr. Wentzell connected to Plymouth High School. How so?
Well, after Toby's, he and 2 friends from the area started a restaurant in Center Harbor, Don Wentzell and Bob Fry. So they ran that for a while, and then when the new school was ready to open, the regional school, he applied for the job of school food service director and got it. That was in 1970 when that opened up.
Can you remember how long he worked there?
22 years.
22 years.
And then he retired at 65. Yeah.
What would he say it was like being the food director for the high school?
Oh, I think he loved it. He loved people, being out with people and around people.
Nice.
Lots of people would come down to his little office and come in and shut the door, and he'd talk with them. Yes. And
like
if they had problems too, they'd come down and share them, and he was good at that.
Oh, that's neat. That is neat.
Yeah.
All right. You have children?
I have 2. Barbara. Where do I start?
Let's see. We were classmates
She was
together.
a classmate of yours. Yeah. You graduated from high school in 68, and she went on and graduated from Plymouth State. Not all at the same time, but she finished it up later. And she and Jim Buckland were married for about 25 years. They had 4 children. They had one. She had a hard time and was sick for all 9 months. She said she wasn't going through that again. So they adopted 3 more. So they had 4 children. And they ran Carryad Kennels on Mount Prospect. It was started on River Road. And then moved, they built a new house and a new kennel on Mount Prospect Road in Holderness. Ran that for many years. And
I think for the people that don't know where that's located, if you go up Prospect Hill and now to the, excuse me, the left-hand side, I think the establishment is called College for Pets.
oh, really?
There is a new sign there, and I'm watching them put flowers outside, etc.
I haven't been up there for a long time.
So that's the location.
Yeah.
And then how many years did she operate that?
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I didn't figure it out.
10, 20?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow.
25.
Wow.
Probably 25 or more. And then they ended up selling it And Barbie hated the winters here, just hated in her job. She worked for Lutheran Family Services out of Lakeport. She had to do some traveling in the winter, and that was not good. So she decided that she was going to move to Florida. So she sold her house, picked up stakes, took her and her dog, and Lida Buckland drove down with her. They drove to Florida, and she moved down there all by herself, rented a condo, and took about 8 or 10 months to figure out just what she wanted to do and so forth. And finally went back to work. And she managed a home for young girls, teenage girls who had problems and so forth for a while. And then got into property management, which is what she retired from. She lived on the East Coast. And, well, the West Coast first, and then the East Coast. She had to move over there. And I'd go down winters and stay with her after I retired. I started out going for 3 weeks around Christmas time, and then it was a month, then 2 months, then 3 months. Ended up spending most of the winter down there with her. We had a great time.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, we did.
That's great.
Yeah, lots of nice memories, you know.
And now you have a son.
I have a son who lives in Holderness, Bill. He's an electrical contractor, and he's married, been married 35 years, 36 years almost now. He has 2 daughters, and they both graduated from college, and they both have their master's degrees in psychology. One is a school counselor. The younger one is a school counselor in Lyndonville, Vermont. She lives in Littleton, New Hampshire. Travels about 30 or 40 minutes to Lyndonville, Vermont. This is finishing her 4th year there. And the other one lives in Weymouth, Mass. She and her boyfriend bought a condo there, and she's a counselor also. She works for the state of Massachusetts. And I describe her job in simple terms as matching up the disabled with jobs. And then she does some private counseling on the side.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
You must be proud of all of them.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
I remember you talking about Bill, and he did his apprenticeship, is that what I call it?
Yes. He went 1 year to Plymouth State, decided it wasn't for him. He wasn't crazy about it. So that summer he worked for Harold Long, painting.
Yes.
And learned a lot of the finer points of painting. And, of course, Harold used to go south in the winter. So Pasco Roberts called him. Wanted to know if he wanted to come to work for him and learn the electrical business. So he thought he did. So he went to work for Pasco. And he also went to school 3 nights a week in Concord to learn the electrical trade while he was working days. And that was in 1971, 50 years ago this fall, that he started in the electrical business. Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Wow. That's wonderful.
And, I didn't tell you about Barbie's youngest 3 children are all still in New Hampshire. Her oldest one, Scott, is an executive chef with Cisco at their main headquarters in Atlanta. And he and his wife live in Stone Mountain, Georgia.
Oh, I've heard of it. Beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful area.
Guess so. I guess I haven't been there. But he has a nice job. He goes out and helps people start up restaurants, or goes out if they're having problems, helps them maybe change their menus or things like that, you know. And they also put on meals for hundreds of people at a time.
Wow.
So that's why Barbie, after she moved to Florida, she and Arnie Jaquith, who was also in your class.
From Rumney.
Jaquith, met down there and got together, went out for about 2 years, and finally got married 6 years ago. So they decided as they retired from their positions that they should be near one of the children. Arnie has one son in Massachusetts, but they didn't want to come that far north.
Too cold.
Yeah. So they went all around Georgia looking to see what was there for houses and so forth. So they finally found a place in Conyers, Georgia. So they bought that, and they've been working on that for a couple of years and getting it all spiffed up. So that's where they are. It's about half an hour from Scott and Jamie.
Wow. Conyers. My
Conyers.
next door neighbor where I live on Prospect is from Conyers, Georgia.
Is that right?
Can you imagine that? We're chatting
What's
away.
their name?
Last name, Dolores. Well, come back to me and I'll tell you later.
Okay.
It's Dolores Sheldon.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Isn't that something?
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah, she does.
It's a little bit below and to the east of Atlanta.
Wow. More questions coming your way. You were educated at the Plymouth High School.
Yes.
And that would have been the original one that still some of us remember. And you went there when? Can you remember the years, or I can provide them?
No, no, I didn't. I started
kidding.
in 1940 when we moved up here. Graduated in 44.
44.
Yeah.
Members of your class that some of the audience folks might remember. Their maiden names, of course, but
Well, my best friend was Sarah Smith Chisholm. Her family owned the Hillside Inn in Hebron.
wow.
Yeah. She, and of course, Beverly McCormick was from BB. She was Beverly Joyce then.
Joyce.
McCormick. Married to Bob. And Genevieve Vittner Ash was from BB River, Herbie Ash's wife. Thelma Sargent Lawson from Campton. Those were the
Good ones.
one I was most friendly with.
You can pass on the following if you want to. What was your best subject?
Best. I loved chemistry, and there was geometry.
Geometry.
I hated algebra.
I was
and
just going to
physics.
ask you that. I wasn't sure if I should ask you.
I don't mind saying it. I hated it. I don't know why I found that difficult, but I loved geometry and chemistry.
A couple of the teachers that you can remember from the high school
Well,
era?
Agnes Riley was there forever, you know. She was there when you were,
Thank
wasn't
you.
she? Yes. She was there when I was.
So the assumption is that she probably retired from maybe Plymouth Teachers College and just walked across
Could
the
be.
street.
Dorothy Flint taught Latin and algebra. Can you imagine a combination like that? I don't know any of the others that were.
Extracurriculars. I always like to know during your era, what were the activities that you might have participated in or you can mention that were held after school? Some of the folks have a hard time doing extracurriculars because
living outside of there. But I joined the Rainbow Girls. That was my biggie. I loved it. And I got to be a worthy advisor. And I did go on and become they have a grand assembly, the state assembly. And I was grand religion of that for a year or so.
for our audience, what does that mean, grand religion?
It's the state organization of the local ones. And you have your grand worthy advisor, which is really something. And then the lesser.
So this
station.
really has status to it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But I loved it.
That's nice, nice. You graduated from high school. What did you do then?
I had applied to go in training, in nurses training. But I was 17 in February and graduated from high school in June. They wanted their students to be 18 years old. At that time, it was the end of the Second World War. And I wasn't going to be 18 until the following February. So I had to cool my heels from June until January, which is when their second class started. They had one in September, of course. So what I did, I went to work at what they called the medical center in Plymouth. It was at 174 North Main Street. I worked 4 evenings a week there. Thelma Fosey was the woman who was the office person there. Shirley Hutchins' mother,
Oh my.
Thelma
Connection.
Fosey. She was wonderful. But they needed somebody evenings, 4 evenings a week. It was Dr. Middleton and Dr. DeWitt and Dr. Archibald.
I've heard of the Complex Medical Center, and I've never been able to pull the 3 doctors together who work there. So one more time for the audience.
Dr. Middleton, Dr. DeWitt, and then when Dr. Archibald came to town, he
Joined it.
came to be with them too.
And Middleton, I've spoken to his son. I've chatted with him a little bit. And Middleton ended up moving to Canada.
Back to Canada.
Back to Canada.
He came from Canada.
Wow.
Did his son go into medicine?
I can't tell you that. I'd probably be wrong, so I won't do that.
Yeah.
Take that one away. Yeah.
But those were the 3.
And then you worked late afternoons or nights?
Like 7 to approximately 9 till they were done.
How did you get there? From
My
your home?
parents had to drive me to Plymouth. And I don't know what they did for a couple of hours, if they couldn't have gone to the movies every night, if they went back home or what. I can't remember that.
Wow.
But I was paid $1 for each evening.
I can't help it.
They took it, some kind of tax out. So at the end of the week, I got $3 and something for 4 nights. And
Wow.
my parents,
What a wonderful experience, Eunice.
it was.
It was.
It really was.
And then when you finally turned 18, what could you do then?
Well, I went in, I passed everything, so the Boston Children's Hospital School of Nursing accepted me. So I went there January 24th, 1945, and graduated January 24th, 1948. We were allowed 2 weeks sick time in the 3 years that we were there. We had to put in a certain number of days. That's the way it worked.
And you specialized in
Pediatrics. Yeah.
And that would have been from birth to
Birth to 12.
12.
Yeah.
12.
Yeah.
All right.
But we spent about 2 years at Children's, but we affiliated at other places for a year. You have to have your adult training, and I spent 6 months at Peter Bent Brigham, which is now Brigham and Women's.
All right. Wow.
3 months at Boston Lying In for OBGYN. And then some of us had 3 months psychiatric training at Waverly, at McLean Hospital in Waverly. And some of us did 2 months with the Boston Visiting Nurses, which my best friend and I did. We had the psychiatric classes, but not the hands-on experience. But 2 years at Children's.
What was the best part of it?
I loved the infants surgical. That's where I stayed about a year after I graduated, from newborns up to 2 years.
Wow.
I just loved it. I hated to leave. And we used to wonder if there were ever any normal babies born. All the babies that we saw had something wrong with them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But it was wonderful. I just loved it.
I can feel it.
Yes.
When you talk
Yeah.
about it, I can feel it. I would like to ask some questions, if I could, about your time living here. And we can pass on any of them if you want to, but a little bit about Plymouth and a little bit
Sure.
about the town that you grew up in, that you reference as your hometown, which would be Camden?
Here you mean, Beebe River and then Campton.
So let's try that and see what happens.
Okay.
You came here when you were about 18 years old?
13.
13. All
For
right.
high
Here we go, for high
that-
school. Thank you.
Yep.
You should be doing the interview and not me.
Really?
And you lived yourself quite a while on Prospect. Is that correct? Mount Prospect?
30 years.
30 years.
Yep.
All right. At the lower part of Prospect?
Yes. Yeah.
And then today, where do you live, approximately?
On Beach Hill in Plymouth.
All right. Okay. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
We have a lot of memories that for some reason we remember, even after 30, 40, 50 years. So if I said to you, Weather.
Weather.
Weather. Can you remember a day in your lifetime that you haven't forgotten about that day because of the weather?
Of course, living in Beebe, back then, we were always inundated with floods. When we lived in the apartment, it was fine. We had to get out because of heat and electricity and so forth. But it didn't affect any of our furnishings or clothes or anything. But when we moved to the house, to Fifth Avenue, across the tracks, we used to call it, in Beebe, we went through a flood there, and we had 4 feet of water on our first floor. And it, of course, most everything was ruined on the first floor. Our bedrooms were upstairs and our clothes and everything, which was okay. But downstairs, all the living room furniture, the washer, dryer in the kitchen, refrigerator were all ruined. Ed took a hose right into the house on the first floor and just hosed everything down to get all that silt off everything. That's my worst memory of flood.
Is there a date on that?
It was 1959.
Wow, 1959.
Yeah. And we had bought this house in Campton and we're working on it to fix it up, but it required quite a bit of work. So we were still living in Beebe, but we did have this house. But believe me, we worked on it and we got it so that we could move there so the children could start school in 1960 up there. Bill was going in the 3rd grade and Barbie the 5th.
It was the only flood you went through that was that memorable?
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
That was a good
The worst.
one. If I said to you, fairs, did you ever have any opportunity? There were some around here.
We used to go to the Plymouth Fair. That was the main one. I can remember they had nice rides there. They had swings that I loved.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
You could see so far when you...
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
Family, friends, events. People have now passed that you remember. There were weddings. There were just reunions, maybe, to get together. Any of those that you would like to share with the audience?
Well, my reunions, the one that comes to mind is our 50th class reunion. We had it at the Jack-o'-lantern in Woodstock. And we have a nice, I could have brought that, booklet, thanks to Bill Batchelder, with a lot of things in it about the class, you know. That was great. And one wedding that I remember was when my grandson Scott, Barbie's son, got married in Key West, Florida. We all trooped to Key West, Florida. And Tom and Dot Anderson, who had the bakery here, loaned us their house on Little Torch Key, about an hour north of Key West. And we stayed there and traveled back and forth to Key West. It was wonderful. That was so nice of them. But Scott and Jamie were both working at the A&B Lobster House in Key West then. So they catered the reception. The wedding was outdoors alongside a swimming pool. And there was a nice yard that they put up a tent and had the buffet there. Oh, it was lovely. We had such a good time. We had several days down there. That was in November in 15 years ago.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
How did people transport? Did they fly? Did they drive?
Yeah. Because I was going to be in Florida anyway. And then we just took this little puddle jumper plane, 8 or 9 people, from Clearwater down to Key West.
9 people.
Just about, yeah.
You've already mentioned this a little bit. Let's see if we can go a bit farther. How has Plymouth itself changed? And we can do Campton as well and Beebe River. How have they changed over the decades that you've lived in these communities?
Well, Beebe River used to be a beautiful little town. Hermie Rismar was the outdoor gardener, and he just loved it, and he did such a wonderful job. It was such a pretty little town. And Draper Corporation kept up the houses and the apartments in tip-top condition all the time. It was great. But it's kind of gone downhill a little bit since then, changed. But Campton, a few changes here and there, you know, a lot of the same places and so forth.
Good.
And Plymouth, of course, Tenny Mountain Highway is all new. The college has gotten really big. Downtown has changed a lot. Different stores.
Different stores, yeah.
Lots of different things like that.
Oh, that's neat. That's neat. Thank you for doing that. It's fun to go backwards.
It is.
Yeah, it is. It
And you
really
remember
is.
things you had forgotten, really.
Well, I think of Plymouth, and as a kid, I'm walking down the railroad tracks. And now the railroad tracks, yes, are still there, but they're not used. So I can remember when they were maybe 10 feet from my aunt's house. And it shook when the railroad came by. We do have the railroad coming through occasionally for the tourist trains.
Do you?
Yeah, we do. And I don't know how far they go. I should ask that question. But that was such a huge piece of the development for Plymouth and the areas around there.
When I was in training in Boston, I went back and forth on the train all the time. Took 3.5 hours to go from Plymouth to Boston.
And
on
what
the
year
train.
was that again?
45 to 48.
I'm trying to remember when the railroad may have stopped, near the end of the 50s, maybe the
I
end of the
don't know.
50s, early 60s. I'll look that one up and see
Yeah.
if I can get a date for that last time through. Was there a person in your family, maybe not, outside your family, that influenced you as a child, as you grew up? As you grew up?
Well, when I was in high school, Draper Corporation had a first aid room, and it was always staffed by an RN. And I'd go down and visit with them lots of times. And
So is that where your occupation, profession came from?
no, I always loved children, babies. Oh, I just loved babies. And that's how I happened to go to Children's Hospital and train. Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah.
Bring you back to Plymouth, or we can stay in the Campton area. Is there a place that you remember for, maybe family took you there for food? You went out for a restaurant. Maybe the restaurant is still here, but maybe it's no longer here. Was there a food that you can remember? It was so enjoyable. If I said to you, fair, I can come up with a food that we always look forward to when we go to the fair. All right, there's one that we still do every year, just so we can have a pile of onion rings.
Oh.
You know, that, sorry. But was there a restaurant that you remember frequenting as a child?
Well, not as a child. That would be in Milford. When I think of myself as a child, it's Milford. But when I worked for Dr. Wentzell, and the children were small, lots of times Friday evenings after work, Ed would bring the children down, and I'd meet them. We'd go to Fausti's. Remember Fausti's?
Oh, I sure do.
We'd have supper there. When I was in high school, when we first moved up here, there was a restaurant in Campton at Blair. As you're going up Route 3, it was called the Travelers Inn. It's, I guess, an office building now. If you're going to take a right to go into the Covered Bridge restaurant, what was the Covered Bridge restaurant, it's right on the corner there. That was a lovely restaurant. I remember going there a couple of times.
Oh, you had a story, I wrote it down. Every Friday evening, the people at Draper would get paid, and they got paid in cash.
Yes.
Can you share that a little bit with me?
Because my father was office manager. He had 3 women working in the office. And they, what they got paid on Friday was for the previous week. So the girls would figure out, they'd get the number of hours the people worked, figure out exactly how much they were going to be paid for the previous week. And also figure out how many 20s that would take, how many 10s, how many 5s, and so forth. And then they would put it all together and figure out what they needed in cash to pay all these employees. I can't tell you how many there were. And then someone, one of them, would call it into the bank here in Plymouth. And they would put up this money, the exact amount of bills and cash, coins. And I think it was Earl Ford who used to come to Plymouth with his revolver in the car and pick up all this cash, hundreds and hundreds of dollars, bring it back to the office. And then they would go in a back room there where they had the list of employees and the amount of money they had earned the previous week. And they had these little envelopes with their names on it. And they'd put the exact amount in each of those envelopes, seal them up. That would be a Friday morning. And Friday afternoon, my father, with his pistol, and I presume Earl went with him, with his gun, they'd go around and deliver all these little envelopes of cash to all of the employees in the mill.
I find that a fascinating story.
Isn't it?
Did we not have checks at that time?
I don't know.
But to personalize it.
They
and
had to
do
figure
this.
everything,
Amazing.
figure exactly what everybody was going to
So
get.
time intensive. So time
Oh,
intensive.
yes.
Amazing.
Took the girls all week to figure it out and type it up and
Wow.
have it
Amazing
ready
story.
and call the bank. And
Let's go back to BB River again. As a high school student, maybe afterwards too, no, what was your favorite hangout at BB River?
the only place we had really was the community hall. They had a pool table and ping pong table.
Nice.
We used to go over there. That was about the only place we had to go then.
And the kids took advantage of it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Nice.
Yep.
Is that building still there? Do you know?
As far as I know.
Interesting. We've driven around there, and
I
that's
haven't been in there lately.
We have just for the memories, so you can talk about who lived where,
Sure.
and what a complex it was. And I happened to interview a few people in the past that have just shared more light on it, what a fabulous community it was for the
It
times.
really was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Amazing.
lovely.
Amazing. I'm not sure if you have memories of any of your family members being in the wars of past.
Well, I know my father was in World War I. He was in Europe, but he did clerical work. I don't think he saw any fighting.
Was he young at that time? World War I?
In his 20s.
20s.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was born in 1893.
1893.
93, yeah. So he would have been in his 20s. This was before he was married. Yeah, and Ed was in the Second World War. In fact, I think he left high school early because he didn't finish it till he got back. And he was in the Pacific Theater. He was on these landing crafts that drive up to the beach and let the front down and the soldiers all get out.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I know. I didn't know him then, and he didn't talk too much about it, but I know that's what he did.
Yeah, for whatever reason, they didn't seem to talk much about it, did they?
they didn't know.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. Let's pop back into town, back and forth. We've had industries, businesses come and go. We've mentioned that slightly. Can you think of some of the businesses on the main street of Campton? You said it's relatively the same, or Plymouth, that you can recall that are no longer here,
Oh, not Campton, but
Okay.
Plymouth. There was a lovely department store, O'Brien's department store, when I was in high school. That Bill O'Brien had. And of course, Newberry's was here. Farley's drugstore.
Go.
When Dr. Wentzell was on Main Street, we were there for 7 years. We used to go down to Farley's drugstore. They had a lunch counter and have our lunch there. I think for $1, I could get a nice sandwich and a milkshake or whatever.
$1.
Yeah.
But I have to remember how much you were getting paid too.
Oh, yes.
At the medical center.
Right,
I
right.
have to put that together.
Right.
Otherwise, yes.
$1 was just right.
O'Brien's. So that would have been O'Brien's burned during the what burned also the Methodist Church in the
was
early
really?
40s. In the early 40s. Yeah, yeah. But I've heard such nice stories.
It was a
of
lovely store.
A great complex.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would like to would have liked to ask your grandparents, your parents, and now that they're no longer here, yeah.
I have wondered where my father's middle name came from. It was Linwood, but I've looked back in what history I have, and I don't see any signs of it. So I'm just curious as to where it came from.
Do you know the background that you have? Your genealogy, where did your parents come from?
Oh, yeah, more or less. Yeah. But I didn't find any history of it at all, no. So I don't know that. And I've often wondered, on my father's side, his grandparents came over here from Donegal, Ireland, the northern part of Ireland. And I'm thinking, what a gutsy thing to do, you know? All these people who immigrated over here. I would love to have known more about why they did and how they did. And when I knew that great-grandmother of mine, she had a different last name, so she must have lost her husband. Her first husband was Henderson. But when I knew her, she was Grammy Adams. So I have no idea. The Adams, her husband wasn't living when I knew her.
Wow.
So,
wow.
I don't know. But those are a couple of things that I've...
Those are neat.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the reason why we do the program that we do, is ask when we can, either friends or parents and grandparents. Sometimes it's written down.
That's what I say to my children. If you can think of anything at all while I'm still living, ask me now. Because when I'm gone, there's nobody else of my generation, you know, to remember anything like that.
Well, I should probably tell you, Mrs. Wentzell, all right, this is the teacher in me, that you should write a few things down now.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
agree.
Yeah.
And I try and tell them, too, if I think of them.
Those are nice. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you bring an artifact or a couple I see in front of you? Would you mind sharing some of those with us?
Sure. What do you want me to do, hold it up?
Oh, yeah, I can do that if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is about the time I graduated from training, and Ed and I were married. And this one is about the same time as when I graduated from training.
All right. So
in 1948.
And this was when? In
48.
Both same.
Yeah.
So husband, Ed.
Yeah.
And this is you in training way back when. Let's put it that way in front of me.
Yeah.
How's
when
that?
I finished.
I'm just looking at the frame itself and the way it's put together with a really small little.
I didn't look at the back.
Yeah, look at the back. Yeah.
Oh, framed by 5x7. Yeah.
Yeah, the nails are so tiny.
This
is
the first time they've been off the wall since I've lived where I do, and they've been up there for 20 years.
No, I just love this. Just love it. How it's put together with the screws and the and the nails.
Right.
Oh my gosh. You look like you're 10. Beautiful. You've got something else over there too. Please.
Oh, this is a bookmark about a book that my daughter has written about RV traveling. And I'll let you
please
do that.
And so she and Arnie have traveled the country in an RV?
Some, yeah. Not a lot, but some, yeah. They're getting it ready now to come north this summer, hopefully.
Oh, that's nice. How long will they be here for? Do you have any idea?
A couple of months, I think.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
So it was interest to her, and it's called I'm going to say, Wonderful Life.
Wonderful, yeah.
Your Guide to RV Living. And so many people are doing this now.
Aren't they?
They really are, yeah.
They are.
Yeah, I think last summer I visited my son, and we were in his RV in Utah for
Really?
a week or so. And every day you're out traveling, and then you come back to the RV. Yeah. It's kind of neat.
Yeah.
So you go, girl, Bobby.
Yes.
What have we missed today?
What have we missed? Let me see if there's anything.
Your family is healthy. Both of the kids have kids. They both went to the Plymouth schools. We know them. If I say Mr. Wentzell, Bill Wentzell, people know who they are.
Yes,
that happened to me this morning, as I shared with you.
Yeah. Bill and Maureen are getting their house all fixed up. In the next few years, they will be selling probably and doing something different. But that's what they're into right now. I don't know.
I think we did well. I think we did well. All right. I'm going to thank you. Thank you very much. I know this is, sometimes it's time intensive. We met a couple times, which was very fun. Unusual. I knew of a Mrs. Wentzell before, of course, because of Barbie. But you don't really get the chance too often. And it's always my privilege to be able to chat a little bit and to know your background. You're their mother, but we don't know much more than the mother part of it. So this is always fun to do that. So I thank you.
It's been very nice. I've enjoyed it too.
Oh, see, it wasn't so nerve-wracking, was it? To the audience today, thank you for joining us. As always, you can find us on the Pemmy Baker TV television station, 1302, and it will be up, I hope, Andrew, within the next day or so. Once it's up out there, you can find it on YouTube if you'd like to watch this again. It is my privilege to talk to the people of the town and the surrounding areas, to listen to their stories and the memories of Plymouth. For us now that we're still in a pandemic and hopefully coming out of it, to think about memories, stories that we've accumulated over the years, it's an important thing. Family is so important to us. And next year, guess what? We'll have another group of people here, and hopefully we do not have a pandemic that we have been going through. It's something that so many of us have never thought about before this time. So enjoy yourselves. Knock on your door to your neighbors if you can. Give them a call and say hi, because many of them don't get out the way that we used to.
I know.
Yes, except for the weather this week is absolutely incredible.
Isn't it?
It is
lovely.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been fortunate.
Yes, we have.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
I would
you're
hold on
welcome.
to your hand, but I'm not gonna.
No, right.
Maybe next time.
Right.
Maybe next time.
Right.